Greetings and welcome to another impressions video here at Words About Games, and today we're going to be looking at XCOM Chimera Squad. XCOM Chimera Squad is a standalone expansion and spin-off to Firaxis Games' XCOM reboot series. 5 years after the events of XCOM 2, where humanity won a bitter war against an alien force that had been occupying the planet for decades, humans and aliens live together in an uneasy peace. The game takes place in City 31, supposedly a model for post-invasion life. But when City 31's mayor is assassinated, Chimera Squad is sent in to find the assassins, maintain order, and keep the citizens of the city safe. Chimera Squad is a very interesting proposition for the XCOM series. While previous expansions to the last two XCOM games have come with pretty sizable changes to gameplay, they've always been grafted onto XCOM's incredibly compelling strategy gameplay loop. Chimera Squad throws out a lot of what's come before and radically reinvents itself. It may have some familiar controls and some familiar aliens, but Chimera Squad is a remarkably different experience. The squad itself is probably the biggest shake-up to the XCOM DNA. Previous XCOM soldiers were little more than blank canvases, a set of character classes that you could customize and grow attached to as they made game-saving Hail Marys, survived hell, or went out in a blaze of glory. You could even name them after your friends. I've had many conversations with people I know who've played Enemy Unknown or XCOM 2 about the journey of the characters who we named after each other. Chimera Squad, however, is made up of pre-made characters. You start out with 4 soldiers, with 11 in total you can recruit. Each character is unique. They have their own name, personality, special abilities, and playstyle. It's not really possible to say it's better or worse than the system in XCOM 2, since it's like comparing apples to oranges, and I'm sure people will have their own personal preferences about which they prefer. But it works really well for what Chimera Squad is all about. You're not fighting for the very survival of the human race against an unstoppable and oppressive conquering army. You're a special ops team, tasked with keeping the peace in a tough situation. Given that, like City 31 itself, Chimera Squad is made up of a mix of humans, aliens, and hybrids, it makes a ton of sense to have specific characters to help tell the story that this game is going for. And the characters themselves are really endearing. You'll have your favourites in no time, both from a gameplay perspective and due to their personalities and banter with one another. Some characters feel indispensable due to their abilities, like Patchwork and her Gremlin Drone, which can deal 4 damage to any enemy regardless of whether they're armoured up or not. Other characters will become favourites thanks to their dialogue. Between missions you'll be sometimes treated to interactions between squad mates who are bickering about missing takeout or making jokes about aliens with Australian accents. Sometimes you'll hear radio broadcasts from conspiracy theorist type personalities or adverts for fried chrysalid, which does not sound appetising. There's a lot of work been put into expanding the post-invasion world of XCOM, as well as presenting a compelling core cast of characters, and it pays off really well. Tactical gameplay has also seen a big shake-up. Missions are much shorter and more focused than their counterparts in XCOM 2, centered around breaching into a room and clearing it out before moving on to the next. You start out each mission in the breach phase, where you'll need to decide which soldiers will go through which entrances and in what order. Smaller missions may see you only breaching into a single room, more significant missions can see you breaching 3 in succession. These more focused combat scenarios, combined with the huge variety in squad-mate abilities, creates a compelling tactical gameplay experience. When breaching a room, you need to be mindful of which entrances to take, as some of them are only accessible with specific characters or items, and they usually come with specific advantages and disadvantages to anyone who goes through, such as buffing characters' damage or reducing their aim as they enter the room. You can also use breach-specific abilities or items to give you an upper hand upon entry. Once you breach in, each of your characters are given a free shot at any enemy they can see, and you'll need to prioritise your targets to manage the encounter ahead. Sometimes you're better off picking off a couple of smaller enemies, sometimes you might want to focus down a beefier foe who's right next to your squad. Once the breach phase is over, your squad takes cover and the tactical combat begins, which is where this game feels most like XCOM, but with one significant difference. Turn order goes back and forth between your soldiers and enemy combatants. There are ways you can mess around with this order, but by and large, you'll be trading turns. This brings a whole new dynamic to Chimera Squad's engagements. The biggest or closest enemies aren't necessarily your most immediate threat. You'll instead need to prioritise your targets based on which ones are attacking next and how well they're positioned to hurt you, which makes each set piece feel like a dynamic, tactical puzzle that needs to be solved. Helping you solve that puzzle are your squad mates' tactical abilities. Each soldier in Chimera Squad has a unique set of skills that dictate their particular playstyle. Zephyr, for example, rushes around the battlefield with her powered gauntlets to deliver hard-hitting melee attacks and inflict debuffs on enemies, and I have to respect a woman whose response to a chrysalid is to roundhouse kick it. Other characters focus on support, direct attacks, tanking damage, psionic abilities, and more. The soldiers you take in a battle will dictate the strategy you'll use, and adapting your tactics to who you've got in your squad creates an incredibly satisfying gameplay loop. Thanks to Chimera Squad's diversity of soldiers, you can start using some really fun skills after a few hours that can upend the battlefield and are just incredibly satisfying to pull off. More options also grant more chances for combos between characters. So while combat feels a bit flat at first, once you're through the first couple of hours and you've unlocked some of the more powerful character skills, either through promoting your soldiers or sending them off for training, it starts to open up and becomes a lot more engaging. Outside of combat, you're tasked with managing your fledgling Spec Ops outfit. You'll need to select which missions to undertake based on their rewards or how effective they are at keeping city anarchy to a minimum. There are 9 districts in City 31, and if their anarchy levels get too high, it can affect Chimera Squad's overall standing in the city. If that gets too high, XCOM are no longer welcome in the city, and it's game over. The strategy layer of Chimera Squad should be pretty familiar to anyone who's played XCOM before. You need to research science projects which unlock powerful new gear, deploy field teams that can help you manage your anarchy level and grant you bonus resources, send your soldiers away for training to unlock their full potential, and run Spec Ops missions for powerful rewards. All that's missing is base building. Juggling your squad can be tight at first, but once you're able to recruit a couple of extra characters, you're better able to do everything that you need to do. The only thing holding me back from unreservedly recommending the game is its technical performance. Most of the bugs and glitches I've encountered have been fairly minor. Weird animations sometimes play when soldiers shoot, or sometimes squad mates will glitch and hover a foot off the ground. It's things like that. But I've also had the game lock up and crash a couple of times. Luckily, the auto-saving in Chimera Squad is incredibly robust, so you won't lose more than a single turn of progress, but it's still annoying when it happens. XCOM Chimera Squad is a radical departure from the traditional XCOM experience that won't necessarily be for everybody. Anyone looking for more of the same might come away from the spin-off disappointed, but if you're open to trying something a bit different while you wait for XCOM 3, Chimera Squad is a pretty great tactics game. The new pre-made roster of characters are a delight, particularly when you start unlocking their more powerful abilities, and the smaller, more focused blasts of combat are just as compelling as ever. This is a strategy game I'm having a hard time putting down, and with its absurd launch day discount, it's fantastic value for money. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, consider sticking around here at Words About Games. Our content includes review impressions of games big and small, a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing the happenings in and around the games industry, weekly opinion videos, reactions, debate-driven top 5 and top 10 lists, a regular Hall of Fame series where we discuss our favourite games, and indie game spotlights. We also stream every Friday and Saturday at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. Most importantly, have a brilliant day.